Earlier, I spoke to Harlan Ullman. He's a senior advisor at the Atlantic Council, and I asked him about the firing of Comey and the timing of the termination, given the FBI's investigation into Trump's ties to Russia.
At very best, this was colossally inept. At the very worst, this is going to be could be a political catastrophe. Whether Mr. Trump really had problems with Mr. Comey since he was inaugurated or since the election and chose this moment or not doesn't make any difference. A 10-year-old child looking at this would say, wait a second, there are issues about Mr. Trump's administration in Russia. The head of the FBI was not only investigating, but asked for more people to investigate. It's a criminal investigation. And now he is fired on these, may I say, trumped-up charges that he didn't deal fairly with Hillary Clinton almost a year ago. The conclusion, rightly or wrongly, is something is very rotten, not in the state of Denmark, but something is very rotten at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. How the administration will overcome this remains to be seen. Mr. Trump's popularity is at 35% before the Comey firing. My guess in 2 or 3 months it'll be down to 20%. And that's a huge problem not only here, but also with foreign countries, because how do you then deal with the United States when you have a politically wounded president who is not respected by Congress, when there are not only going to be calls for independent counsels, but you will hear calls for impeachment over the coming months. This is a very, very, very serious issue, not for America, but for the world at large. But unfortunately, Mr. Trump has absolutely no experience in government, has a tin ear when it comes to public relations. And so by trying to suggest that he and Putin could get along, by exaggerating, if not telling the truth about his relationships with Russia and Mr. Putin, he's made the situation worse. And unfortunately, the White House optic yesterday of these good guys getting together, laughing and smiling when everybody thinks that Ambassador Sergei Kislyak was a head Russian spy, which is nonsense. And on Capitol Hill, where the only thing, and one of the few things that Republicans and Democrats agree on, is that Russia is the enemy. And so domestically, that optic of Mr. Trump getting along so well with Lavrov and Kislyak painted, unfortunately, the wrong picture. So whatever good intentions Mr. Trump may have, I think they were spoiled by the fact that a picture is worth many thousands of words.
What needs to happen right now between today and the G20 summit when President Trump and President Putin meet for the first time in person?
The first thing that we have to do is to restore military-to-military dialogue. Both sides are not talking to each other. The Russians want to talk. The American military wants to talk. That has to be the first step. And it's got to be about making sure that we don't have incidents at sea or on the land or on the air that can blow out of proportion. It's about making confidence-building steps so that we can improve the relationships. It's addressing Russian concerns about anti-ballistic missile defenses in Europe, about which they have been unbelievably neuralgic, and our concerns about Russian active measures in which they have been meddling in our elections, the French elections, and certainly they will in the German elections too.